Be me, Elizabeth, 32. I try to stay informed about social issues and work to recognize harmful patterns like toxic masculinity and male privilege. Have this ongoing frustration with my younger brother, Adrian. He's 24 and honestly the perfect example of everything wrong with men today. Adrian has been living with our mom for the past 3 years, dropped out of his engineering program junior year with some vague excuse about not being ready. Hasn't held a job for more than 6 months since then. Spends most of his time sleeping until 2 p.m. and playing video games. Barely showers. Room smells like a cave. Hasn't dated anyone in forever. Classic failure to launch syndrome that I've read so much about. Family dinners are always awkward because of him. Mom keeps making excuses like he's just going through a rough patch. Meanwhile, I'm watching this grown man let a 58-year-old woman cook for him and do his laundry. It's honestly disgusting and so typical. Remember last Christmas dinner particularly clearly. Adrian showed up late, hadn't shaved in weeks, wearing the same hoodie he'd worn for days. Barely said 2 words to anyone, just sat there picking at his food. When Uncle David asked about his job search, Adrian just shrugged and said, "Still looking." I couldn't hold back anymore. "You know what the problem is?" I said, putting down my fork. "This is exactly what's wrong with men in this generation. You expect women to take care of you while you do absolutely nothing to better yourself. Mom, you're enabling him by letting him live there rent-free." Adrian just stared at his plate, but I kept going. "I have friends who are single mothers working 2 jobs and going to school. But somehow a healthy 24-year-old man can't even motivate himself to shower regularly. This is what happens when society tells boys they don't have to develop emotional intelligence or life skills." Mom tried to change the subject, but I was on a roll. "No, this needs to be said. This is toxic masculinity in action. Instead of dealing with your emotions like an adult, you just retreat into video games and self-pity. Take some responsibility for your life, Adrian." He got up and left the table without saying anything. Didn't see him for the rest of the evening. Mom was upset with me, but honestly, someone needed to say it. This pattern continued for months. Every family gathering, every phone call with Mom, Adrian was the elephant in the room. Sleeping 12 hours a day, no motivation, no direction. Meanwhile, I'm working 50-hour weeks and managing my own life just fine. Started bringing it up more directly when I'd visit Mom's house. "Adrian, you can't live like this forever. What's your 5-year plan? What are you even doing with your life? Do you realize how this looks? A grown man being supported by his mother?" He'd always give these weak responses. "I'm working on it," or "It's complicated," or just silence, which honestly made me more angry, because at least own up to your failures. Had a particularly heated argument with him last spring. Found him at 3 p.m., still in bed, curtains drawn, room smelling stale. "This is ridiculous, Adrian. Get up. This isn't normal behavior. When I was your age, I was working full-time and finishing my degree." He mumbled something about not feeling well. "You never feel well because you don't take care of yourself. You don't exercise, you don't eat properly, you don't have any structure. This is what happens when men aren't taught to be accountable. You don't understand, Elizabeth." "What don't I understand? That you've chosen the easy path? That you'd rather live like a teenager than face adult responsibilities?" Stormed out of his room feeling completely frustrated. Told Mom she was doing him no favors by coddling him. He needs tough love, not constant accommodation. This went on for literally years. Every conversation somehow came back to Adrian's failures. Used him as an example when talking to my coworkers about male privilege. My brother is the perfect case study in how men expect the world to revolve around them. Genuinely believed I was helping by refusing to enable his behavior. Thought maybe harsh reality checks would motivate him to change. All my friends agreed that someone in the family needed to hold him accountable. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Was at Mom's house helping her organize some paperwork. She had to run errands and asked me to sort through a pile of mail and bills, told me to put anything important in the kitchen drawer, going through the stack, mostly utility bills and junk mail. Then I see an envelope from Riverside Mental Health Associates, addressed to Adrian. Wasn't trying to snoop, but the envelope was already partially opened. Could see what looked like an appointment reminder card sticking out. Told myself I was just organizing Mom's mail properly. Pulled out the card to see if it needed immediate attention. Appointment reminder for Adrian Rodriguez. Weekly therapy session with Dr. Patricia Williams. Depression, anxiety treatment, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Had next week's date on it. Stood there staring at this card for probably 5 full minutes. Adrian was in therapy for depression. How long had this been going on? Kept digging through the mail with shaking hands. Found another envelope from the same clinic, this one sealed. And then another one from something called Behavioral Health Services, all addressed to Adrian. Sat down at Mom's kitchen table, feeling completely disoriented. When had Adrian started therapy? Why didn't anyone tell me? Was this recent, or had it been going on for a while? Heard the front door open and Mom calling out that she was back. Quickly shoved all the mail back together, but kept the appointment card. Mom, can we talk about something? Showed her the appointment reminder. Watched her face change completely. She got that look like she'd been caught in something. How long has Adrian been going to therapy? Elizabeth, that's not really our business. How long, Mom? She sat down across from me, looking exhausted. About 8 months now. 8 months? Why didn't anyone tell me? Because we knew you'd react exactly like you're reacting right now. Felt like I'd been slapped. What do you mean, react how? You think therapy is just another excuse for him, don't you? Honestly, part of me did think that, but I was more confused than anything. What is he even going to therapy for? Mom looked at me for a long time before answering. Depression, Elizabeth. Severe, clinical depression. The words hit me like a physical blow. Depression since when? The doctors think it started in college, maybe even before. That's why he dropped out. That's why he's been struggling. Sat there trying to process this information, but he never said anything about being depressed. He barely talks to any of us. Mom's voice got quiet. Especially not to you. What's that supposed to mean? Elizabeth, you've been so hard on him. Every time you see him, it's another lecture about how he's failing. Did you think that was helping his mental health? Felt defensive immediately. I was trying to motivate him. Someone had to tell him the truth about his behavior. How was I supposed to know he was depressed if he didn't say anything? Mom rubbed her forehead like she had a headache. He tried to tell us in his own way. All those times he said he didn't feel well, that it was complicated. He was asking for help and you just kept pushing. My mind was racing back through years of interactions. All those times I'd called him lazy. All those lectures about taking responsibility. The Christmas dinner when I humiliated him in front of the whole family. How bad is it, Mom? Her eyes filled with tears. He had what his doctor calls a crisis episode 6 months ago. He told me he didn't want to be alive anymore. Felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What do you mean he didn't want to be alive? I mean exactly what you think I mean, Elizabeth. Sat there in complete silence. My brother had been suicidal. While I was lecturing him about male privilege and toxic masculinity, while I was calling him lazy and unmotivated, he was literally fighting to stay alive. Why didn't you tell me? Because look at how you're reacting now. You're making it about you instead of about him. He specifically asked me not to tell you because he was afraid of your judgment. That hit harder than anything else. My own brother was afraid to tell me he was struggling with mental illness because he knew I would judge him for it, because I had already been judging him for it. I need to talk to him. Elizabeth, I don't think that's a good idea right now. He's finally making progress in therapy. He's starting to feel a little better, but I was already heading upstairs. Needed to see him, needed to understand. Knocked on his bedroom door. Adrian, can we talk? Heard movement and then his voice, cautious. What about? I know about the therapy, about the depression. Long pause. Come in. Opened the door to his room. Hadn't really looked around in months because I was always too busy lecturing. Room was actually cleaner than I remembered. Bed was made, desk was organized. Adrian was sitting at his computer, looked like he'd been working on something. Mom told you. I saw your appointment card. He nodded and gestured to the chair by his desk. Okay. Sat down, feeling incredibly awkward. How long have you been depressed? Honestly, probably since high school. But it got really bad in college. That's why I couldn't finish. You never said anything. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. When? Between all your speeches about how I was failing at life? When exactly was I supposed to bring up that I could barely get out of bed? Felt my face flush with shame. I thought you were just unmotivated. I thought you were being lazy. I was trying to help. Help? His voice got sharper. Elizabeth, you told me I was everything wrong with men today. You said I was a failure to launch. You compared me to your successful female friends. How was any of that helping? Realized I had tears in my eyes. I didn't know you were sick. But would it have mattered? Would you have been nicer to me if you knew I had a diagnosis? The question hung in the air. Honestly, wasn't sure I could answer it, because part of me had always thought depression was overdiagnosed, especially in men who just didn't want to try hard enough. What does depression actually feel like? Adrian looked surprised by the question. Took him a while to answer. It feels like you're drowning, but everyone around you is breathing fine. It feels like there's this weight on your chest that never goes away. Like every simple task takes enormous effort. Getting out of bed, taking a shower, making a phone call. Everything feels impossible. Continued listening as he talked. The worst part is how guilty you feel for not being able to do normal things. Everyone expects you to just push through it. But it's not laziness, Elizabeth. It's like your brain is broken. Those words hit me like a truck. So men aren't lazy. They're just broken. All this time I thought he was choosing to be unmotivated, but he was actually fighting a battle I couldn't even see. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because of how you reacted to everything else. You made it clear that you thought I was just making excuses. That I was weak for not handling things like you do. Remembered all the times I'd dismissed his explanations, called them excuses and deflections, told him he needed to take responsibility instead of wallowing. I made it worse, didn't I? Adrian was quiet for a long time. Yeah, you did. Every time. You called me lazy. Every lecture about toxic masculinity. It just confirmed what the depression was already telling me. That I was worthless and pathetic. Started crying then. Couldn't help it. Years of righteous anger melting into devastating guilt. I'm so sorry, Adrian. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was holding you accountable. I know you thought that. But Elizabeth, you never once asked how I was feeling. You just assumed you knew what my problem was. And you were so confident about it. That stung because it was true. Had been so sure I understood the situation, so convinced that I was the enlightened one who could see through his excuses. Never occurred to me that I might be completely wrong. How bad did it get? Bad enough that I wrote letters. Letters. Goodbye letters. Felt like I was going to be sick. Adrian, I didn't go through with it, obviously. But there were nights when I really didn't think I could keep going. Was that because of what I was saying? It was because of a lot of things. But your constant criticism definitely didn't help. made me feel even more isolated. We sat in silence for several minutes, trying to process years of misunderstanding, thinking about all the times I'd been so sure I was right, all the lectures, all the judgment, all the self-righteousness. Are you getting better now? Some days are better than others. The medication helps, and therapy is helping. But it's not like flipping a switch. What can I do? I don't know, Elizabeth. This isn't something you can fix with an apology. You spent years making me feel like garbage. Knew he was right. Couldn't undo all that damage with one conversation. Couldn't take back all the times I'd humiliated him at family dinners. Couldn't erase all the lectures about male privilege while he was silently suffering. I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. A lot. And it's going to take time for me to trust that you actually care. Left his room feeling completely hollowed out. Went home and couldn't stop thinking about everything he'd said. How confident I'd been in my analysis of his problems. How wrong I'd been about literally everything. Spent the next few days replaying every interaction we'd had. All the family dinners where I'd made speeches about his failures. All the times I'd used him as an example of toxic masculinity. All the lectures about taking responsibility while he was fighting suicidal thoughts. Realized how much damage my self-righteousness had caused. Thought I was being enlightened and holding people accountable, but I was actually just being cruel to someone who was drowning. And I was too arrogant to see it. Started researching depression more seriously. Learned about how it can look like laziness from the outside. How men especially are taught to hide emotional struggles. How criticism and shame make it worse, not better. Everything I'd been doing was exactly wrong. Every lecture about accountability was pushing him deeper into isolation. Every comparison to successful women was confirming his sense of worthlessness. I had been unwittingly torturing someone who was already in pain. Called Mom a few days later. How long have you known? Known what? That Adrian was depressed, not lazy. I suspected something was wrong for a long time, but I didn't have words for it until he got diagnosed. I just knew he wasn't the same person he used to be. Why didn't you stop me from being so hard on him? I tried, Elizabeth. But you were so convinced you were right. You wouldn't listen to any other perspective. Realized this was true. Anytime Mom had tried to defend Adrian, I'd accused her of enabling, told her she was part of the problem, been so sure that tough love was what he needed. I've been a terrible sister. You've been a sister who cared but didn't understand. The question is what you're going to do now. Spent weeks trying to figure out how to repair the relationship. Couldn't just pretend the last few years hadn't happened. Couldn't act like one apology fixed years of judgment and criticism. Adrian had made it clear he didn't trust my sudden change of heart. Tried small gestures at first, texted him articles about depression that I was reading, asked Mom how his therapy was going, stopped making any comments about his lifestyle when I visited, but could tell he was still guarded around me. Conversations were stilted and careful. Could see him watching me, waiting for the judgment to return, waiting for me to slip back into lecture mode. Had dinner at Mom's house last week. Adrian actually came downstairs and ate with us. Looked better than he had in months. Was talking about maybe taking some online classes. Felt proud of him, but also devastated. Realized this progress was happening despite me, not because of me. He was getting better now that I'd stopped actively making things worse. That was a hard truth to face. How's therapy going? I asked carefully. It's good. Dr. Williams is helping me understand a lot of things. Like what? Like how to tell the difference between my own thoughts and the depression thoughts, and how to ask for help when I need it. Wanted to ask more questions, but didn't want to push. This was the longest conversation we'd had since I found out about his diagnosis. Didn't want to ruin it by being too intense. After dinner, Adrian helped clear the table. Elizabeth, Can I ask you something? Of course. What made you so angry at me before? Before you knew about the depression, I mean. Thought about it seriously. I think I was frustrated because I couldn't understand why someone with your advantages wasn't succeeding. I saw you as having opportunities that women don't always get. And I felt like you were wasting them. But you never asked me what was really going on. You just assumed you knew. He was right. I had made assumptions based on my own worldview, never considered that there might be invisible factors I couldn't see. I think I was so focused on gender dynamics that I forgot you were a person. You became a symbol to me instead of my brother, a symbol of male privilege and failure to launch. I stopped seeing your individual humanity. Adrian nodded slowly. That's what it felt like. Like I wasn't a real person to you anymore. Just an example of everything you thought was wrong with men. We've been slowly rebuilding our relationship since then. It's awkward and careful and sometimes painful. There's a lot of hurt that needs healing, and I have to prove that my change of heart is genuine. Learned that Adrian has been making real progress. He's working part-time now at a bookstore, still lives with mom but pays rent and helps with groceries. Taking 2 online classes toward finishing his degree. Has made a few friends through a depression support group. Most importantly, he's still alive. When I think about how close he came to not being here, how my constant criticism was adding to his reasons to give up, it makes me physically sick. Realized that all my feminist education never taught me about male-specific struggles. Never learned about how men are socialized to hide emotional pain. Never considered that depression might look different in men. Was so focused on calling out privilege that I missed genuine suffering. Not trying to excuse my behavior, just trying to understand how I got so wrong about someone I love, how my ideology became more important than my humanity, how being right mattered more than being kind. Adrian told me something in therapy he learned about depression, that it's like having a broken leg that no one can see. People expect you to run normally and get angry when you can't. They think you're just not trying hard enough. That metaphor hit me hard. I had been yelling at someone with a broken leg to run faster, calling him lazy for limping, refusing to believe his injury was real, still working on forgetting my need to always be the enlightened one, the one who sees through excuses and calls out problems, learning that sometimes I don't understand the situation at all, that my perspective isn't always the most important one. Adrian and I text now sometimes. Nothing deep, just checking in. He sends me memes occasionally, which feels like progress. Last week he asked for my opinion on something for the first time in years. Know it will take a long time to fully repair what I damaged. Might never get back to the close relationship we had as kids. Before I decided his struggles were really about gender politics. Before I made his pain about my ideology. Mom says Adrian talks about me sometimes in therapy, working through the hurt I caused, learning to separate his own self-worth from my constant criticism. Apparently it's been a major part of his healing process. That's hard to hear but important to face. My words and judgment became part of his inner critic, part of what the depression used against him, my voice telling him he was worthless and lazy, trying to be more careful about jumping to conclusions now, about assuming I understand other people's struggles, about using my politics as a reason to be cruel, about prioritizing being right over being compassionate, still believe in feminist principles, still think toxic masculinity is real, but learned that real people are more complicated than political talking points. That individual suffering can't be reduced to group dynamics. Last conversation with Adrian, he told me something important. Elizabeth, I need you to understand something about men and depression. We're taught that admitting struggle makes us weak. So we hide it until it nearly kills us. Your job as my sister isn't to break me down further. It's to create space where I can be honest about what I'm going through. He's right. Spent years demanding that he be more emotionally open, while simultaneously punishing him for any sign of vulnerability. Created the exact opposite of a safe space for honesty. Think about all the men who might be struggling silently, because people like me have made it clear that we see their pain as privilege, that we interpret their struggles as excuses, that we won't believe them unless they can prove they're really suffering. Adrian is doing better now, but it's fragile. Depression doesn't just go away because you get therapy. It's something he'll have to manage for probably his whole life. And I want to be part of his support system, not part of what tears him down. Learning to ask, "How are you feeling?" instead of, "What are you doing?" Learning to listen without immediately offering solutions or criticism. Learning that sometimes people need compassion more than accountability. Still feel guilty about the years of damage I caused. Still wake up sometimes remembering particularly cruel things I said. Still worry about how close I came to losing my brother permanently and how much of that would have been my fault. But Adrian is alive. He's getting help. He's slowly building a life that works for him. And maybe, eventually, he'll forgive me for taking so long to understand. That he wasn't broken by choice. That he was fighting a war I couldn't see. And that my job was to be his ally, not his enemy.